doesn't hold true for you? What myth would you like to see exposed?
I disagree with absolute values. I see things more in terms of processes and greyness. So as soon as, in human terms, as soon as someone's absolutely correct about something, then alarm bells go off and you start to question that. Why are they so correct? And what about? And you look for ways around the challenges for it. That I find it quite provocative. So I may not just be in conversational terms, it might be a type of statement, anything which is absolute, permanent. Permanence of any sense is, I feel, an illusion and something which is an accident of, again, of scale and perception. Historically, I suppose, mountains are often seen as emblems of solidity and permanence, but we know they operate on a geological timescale of millions of years. They just look quite permanent to us.
The myth of power, you know, what we create, we all created this, and we all have a hand in it, in creating this system that sends the wrong message, you know, what it is to be beautiful, what it is to be loved, and what is right and what is wrong, all this kind of, where the power is not where we get it from. We get the lie constantly from the media, from, you know, television, computer, everything, even the vocabulary, you know, everywhere. We are bombarded by lies, yeah. So if we take power and we look at it, we just look at it and we rethink it and we re-experiencing it, and then when we dance, we work with it, don't we? Because with power you can actually, exactly, we need to find our own and connect with our own power and boundaries, and not to harm, and yeah, you have power is connected with respect and with so many other things.
I suppose the myth which is big currently is the scapegoating of particular people, either the poor or immigrants in our society, which seems to be getting traction in the media, which I find very worrying, and I would love to do things that would debunk some of the myths and misunderstandings which are being promulgated for nefarious purposes. The myth is that our problems as a society are caused by immigrants and the work-shy poor.
Yeah.
I want to expose that because I'm looking for living in a society which is open, generous, more equal, provides opportunities for everybody, regardless of irrelevant differences. And I suppose that's part of what motivates me.
The state of our economy. Everyone is constantly complaining about the economy is not functioning, the economy is not doing well, the economy. And I'm thinking that they really need to get out of themselves, literally, and watch themselves say these things and try to manage what it is, and realize that it's actually the shape and the functioning of our whole society that can be modified. And now I sound like a revolutionary. but this is again is by doing little things like this, but it's consciousness within the mind and the heart of these people who are at the government. If they understand that instead of trying to boost the economy and make people spend money, need more, it's really trying to shift these ideas of need, this idea of consumerism, and what it is that we're trying to achieve by that. Is it the only way we can function? And I always feel or rage at hearing the world, the government, well, any world leaders mention, that we are in the developed world, and they are the third world, and they are underdeveloped countries, and what they've got to teach us, these people, I'm sorry. Go and spend some time in the jungle, go and spend some time in little villages in Africa, go and spend some time in India, in the streets of Jaipur, and you're going to see that they know a lot of things about needing and about managing with what they've got, and doing and making and smiling. And I think it's something that politicians have forgotten to do.
The idea that technology and everything we do will always make things better. I think that's quite an interesting one, because it's kind of, you can kind of, depending on what you're talking about, but you can get classed as a Luddite and sort of saying, you're denouncing all technology and everything, but kind of there is this sort of world thing that advancement is better. I think it's good to sort of go, well, actually, is it?
I went on a stag do, my first ever stag do, and the other guys went to a strip club, and me and two other guys sat in the pub, got very drunk, and we were talking about radicalism, and that I said I wanted to outsee the end of capitalism.
Yeah.
Which is like as big as it gets.
Yeah.
So if I want to see any myth, it's good. You might as well go for the top prize. I would like to see the end of capital.
I would like everyone to question the structures and systems that surround them and look at them differently, to look at them beyond their fascia, just to start asking questions about them. Generally, I cannot stand one of the myths and perceptions of fine artists being highbrow and the language that is used in art particularly. I absolutely despise and hate it. And if I could, I would do a piece that pulls down or attacks the nature of highbrow artists and the establishment. A lot of the intellectual books that I read I find infuriating because the language that they use is very exclusive. I don't think that that's healthy. I think it marginalises people. I actually believe that everyone is an artist, and I think that barriers are put up by creating that kind of literature. I think it encourages us to think we are becoming involved in a very exclusive club, and I don't believe in those hierarchies at all.
One myth that doesn't hold true for me is that we're too little or too without the power to change things. All the time there's this present moment.
Yeah.
And the possibilities in the present moment are almost infinite. And it's not just like you sitting there, there's like everybody all over the world in the now. And so there's you in that moment, and you've got choices. You can choose in that moment to create whatever.
I think I'll make it specific to art practice. I think the idea that the more you progress as an artist in terms of career, that you gain a greater sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think meeting artists in various stages of their careers, that they don't really ever know what they're doing, and perhaps learn to be comfortable with that sense of uncertainty, even though it never goes away.
That the definition of art with the majority of the world. I know when you go to art school and stuff that the definition changes because you're suddenly opened up to all of this other stuff. But as far as I was concerned, growing up in school, you are taught about painters, about sculptors, some installation work, you know, some art that isn't about you having a talent of being hyper-realist. I think it needs to just be put out there when you're growing up that art is about expressing yourself. It's about finding that part inside you that's passionate and just doing that. You know, art can be found in any job. Art is, if you're passionate about what you do, I believe that you are an artist. I don't believe that an artist has to be your job description. I'm aware that for some people it is, and I don't think that that's wrong either. I just think that it needs to be more open of a definition of art. I think that people need to open their eyes a bit more. And
I think that going back to that, I suppose the truth about, I mean, lots of people have a very stereotypical view on art, so it would be quite to burst that bubble, wouldn't it, and just get people to stop seeing geese, paintings of geese and things and pheasants, and just, you know,
expand your mind, expand the barriers.
Yeah.
I think truth is really important, and integrity in work, and I probably worry about that more than anything else. And I don't really understand artists who sort of have limits to what they feel is art. I mean, whether good or bad, there's just room for everything, and we're all kind of pushing out in all directions, and so I very much unhappy when people try to draw a line somewhere and say that this is valid but this isn't valid. For instance, very accessible work, well, that's valid because it's accessible, but work that's inaccessible to certain groups, that then has no validity. And I think that some work is difficult, but I don't think that's a reason not to make it or explore those routes.
What do you want to see done differently?
I've been reading a lot of stuff over the last few days about the Green Party, and I think I didn't really know much about them, and sort of dismissed them as tree huggers and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things that I find really interesting about them is that they're inviting people to think about the world in a very different way, rather than like being preoccupied with what you can acquire or get in monetary or material ways. Thinking about your place in the world and your well-being and the way that you interact with your environment. It's almost like a complete overhaul about what matters and the way you connect with other people and interact with the environment. I find that very interesting. Are you saying you'd like to see evidence of people moving away from measuring things in their monetary significance? Maybe not as concluded as that, just to entertain it as a thought experiment for people to maybe just stop. And I completely apply this to myself as well, to stop and think about the way that we're living and entertain the possibility that there might be other ways. And when I have conversations with people about capitalism and consumerism, there's always this kind of, well, if we don't have this system, what else is there? You know, if this wasn't to be in place, then there would be chaos. And I really don't agree with that. It's like we've become so reliant on this model, and it's so entrenched in what we do that we can't possibly conceive anything else. So you want people to explore the possibility? Yeah, but not in a kind of panicked, apocalyptic way, but in quite a liberating way.
Politics.
Hello.
Politics, and a more level playing field. You don't have to sort of say no to capitalism and
Yes.
jump the other way, but you can say, okay, but can we do that differently? And it still be fair?
I'd like to see education done differently. I think there's something radically wrong with what we do with children and teenagers in schools. And you know, I quite like the stuff that Bob and Roberta Smith is saying at the moment about the importance of allowing children to experience art, you know, music, design, the whole gamut of artistic expression, which you know, it enriches them personally, gives them more to hope for than just being an economic unit of production for some multinational company. It humanises people. So I'd like to see more emphasis on that in schools.
A bit more equality, and then I say a bit more. That sounds like I don't really want it that much. Equality, and then within the arts, like equality and fairness, and mutual respect for what everyone does and why they do it. And
Can you give me a specific example?
I can. But I won't. Okay, we'll go with the standard, which everyone can relate to, is funding, and the imbalance of how important the arts are to people and what they do for and to people. You know, educationally, emotionally, visually. Therapeutically. Yeah.
I witnessed too many occasions that people sit around and talk about other things, and then we all are stuck, you know, on, you know, bubbles. But if we actually all come together and one by one we just tell one story from our life, it doesn't matter if it's, it doesn't have to be, you know, it can be any size of story, but I think it has a
Power.
The power of the story. I tell you, I really believe that the personal, you know, I mean, it is, you can connect it with the line of thought of the personal and political are connected,
Yeah. The state of the art world.
Yay! Glad we got to
please
this.
Just turn it around.
Okay.
It so annoys me. No, it does. And I think it's about bloody time that artists stop talking to just artists, and they start talking to other people, which is who they're trying to reach. So that's what I think we are trying to do. That, like when I say artists, I'm talking about the art world that has got that big institution that think that they're so much better than the rest of the world. And I think the more, for a long time I was thinking art is the way, art is the only way to change the world, and now I'm thinking art is a job, and everyone has a job to do, and the farmer's job is totally as valid as my job. I think that it's still quite London-centric, really. And that, I think, is a really great, you know, there's a huge shortfall in the work that could be out there and celebrated because it's very centred around London, and I know that from experience. You know, quite often when I show there, people say, "Oh, so which part of London are you from?" And then I say, "I'm not in London." "Oh, you're not in London? I thought you were one of us." You know, like it's really strange. Don't like that, and I think they miss out. I think they are. You know, the whole thing was incredibly on not. Including the rest of the country more. Well, there are great things going on all around the country, and the internet and social media have made it possible for it to be vastly more integrated than it used to be. But it's still, there are still galleries and things that you know, very much stay within that circle.
I understand why the structures as they stand exist in terms of presenting artists through exhibitions to the population in general, and I understand why certain artists become famous and household names. But I think that this huge hierarchy about it, when it's so commercially driven, I just wish there was an alternative and a different system.
I think maybe the notion of what is and what isn't art. For example, if I make a jar of peanut butter, is that art? Is it art just because I say it's art? Or if someone living down the road from me makes a jar of peanut butter, is that art? Why is it art if I say it's art? And so on and so on, things like that.
Just like trying to do as little as possible and not trying to come up with this beautiful masterpiece at the end. Yeah. It would never be perfect. You can never... I have a very strong relationship with a male friend called Guy. And he was trying to get this piece of wood cut perfectly, and I was like, you cannot ask the atoms to line up for you. You can't ask that atom to divide with that one, because they're like too personally connected to each other. So you can't do it.
And it's trying.
Yeah. So maybe like those like computers that divide atoms in half, or like that big spirally thing. That might be close to perfection.
And why does a print have to be flat, and why does it have to be in a frame? And, you know, kind of, why can't it be something sculptural as well, or something that wraps around something?
I'm way more interested in physical space, like the relationships between people and things happening, and experiences and responses, and yeah, it's almost like the flat world is about the ideas, which I love, but now I'm more interested in seeing those ideas actually put into the world in a tangible way, and for people to encounter things and experience things and be moved by them, so that they're more aware that art can be experienced as part of life.
Yeah.
Without it being constrained to something that seems removed from them, like a book or a page or...
Everyone should know what options are available. Because I think a lot of the time within universities and stuff, because you're in an educational environment, the options which are available to you are within education.
Yes.
And talking about you can apply this to schools and groups and therapy and stuff. And I guess for me, one thing I didn't know this world that I'm in right now existed. Yeah. I had no idea that this was how it worked, and this is how printmaking and editioning and working with artists, that's how it happened. And I think that lesson needs a teaching. The balance between a practice at uni and a professional practice. So take it as printmaking, traditional printmaking, and its techniques, and then how that's applied within a working life environment. are two things. Knowing how to get from there to there and integrating the two. It's all very well and good being told something and like, oh yeah, school and uni and working environments, etc. And the most important thing is networking and meeting people. But then unless you know, it's always in hindsight that you
Unless
know
you actually-
how to and
Yeah.
what actually it is. And it's
unless you-
literally just a case of just being like, hey, let's hang out, let's be friends, here's my card, here's a number, let's have a chat about normal.
I think we should strive to do all of them differently, don't you think?
Yes.
Definitely. Not just one or two. I think we should try rethinking everything.
Absolutely.